I would like to welcome on stage now our second and last panel for the evening. I would like to welcome Barbara Cox. You're a member of the management board of Siemens. You're a board member of Total, Unicore, and Henkel. Thank you very much for your presence. I would like to welcome Paul Marshall. Paul, you're the chairman and chief investment officer of the same company name, Marshall Wace LLP, a fund in the UK. You're also the co-founder and trustee of ARK Charity, Absolute Return for Kids, charity association. You're the author of Tackling Education Inequality. So we'll talk about all of this. I would like also to welcome Bruno Witvoet on stage. Bruno, you are the CEO of Unilever France. You're also a board member of the Université Paris Dauphine. Thank you to all you three for being our second panel tonight. I've been told, of course, Bruno speaks French. Barbara told me she spoke French. Paul, you speak French as well. But it's up to you, right? I can ask questions in English, in French. I can do both. You tell me what you prefer. You express yourself in the language you like or you wish to express yourself, if that's fine with you. Thank you very much. I think the topic is written here. Maybe you can't see it, but we've heard a lot tonight. We've heard a lot of fantastic ideas. We've heard a lot of fantastic things happening already. We have had inspiring speeches, sometimes on the theoretical side, sometimes on the practical side. What I would like to do with you now is dive into action, to show how the corporate world goes into action, clearly, and then to show as well what the leadership by example must be. You are leaders by example, because you're chairman, because you're management board, because you're CEO, and you're going to tell us about this inspiration and the corporate world into action. But first of all, you know my style of interview. I told you I always ask the same question as first question. Why are you here? Why did you agree to come here to speak about this fantastic topic? Barbara.
Because I'm deeply convinced that we all can make this world a better place. We are, of course, living in times of terrible crisis, so to be optimistic is rather difficult. I looked today on Google, and actually how to make the world a better place has 1.3 billion hits. So it seems to be a really in topic. So I think it's clearly something to move forward. I'm quite optimistic. Why? Because at this moment I see the most important crisis. We haven't yet talked this evening about it. Bertrand, you touched upon it very shortly. It's a sustainability crisis, because actually we as mankind, we use the resources, the natural resources of 1.7 planets. And when we grow to 9 billion people, which we will, maybe in 2030 or maybe later, we will need 2 planets. We only have 1. So we need to do something fundamentally different. What makes me optimistic when I came to Paris today, that there is a solution to it. We haven't yet talked about it this evening. It's technology. I'm very, very interested in technology. And actually, the technology exists already today to solve 70% of this problem. And that's actually my business opportunity. I will talk about that later on, but that's really why I came today. I think it's something we really need to be taking forward, especially in the times of crisis that we are living in today.
Thank you, Barbara. In the time left, we have to fix sustainability crisis and talk about technology. I will remember that. Paul.
I'm here tonight, first of all, because I love INSEAD. And I particularly want to talk to the 30 or 50 people who are there at the moment, if that's the case. Secondly, because it's a really important subject, and I want to talk about disruptive optimism. Just taking the word radical and turning it to what I think it should mean. And thirdly, I'm here because it's my 26th wedding anniversary, and we came to Paris for our anniversary. We happen to be here, and our flat is 2 minutes down the road. My wife's just here.
Just an evening for you. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for that. Bruno.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons is we've been knowing each other with Jean-Marc a long time ago. He worked in Unilever and we're colleagues together. And I think the reason is you asked, I'm polite, I said, yes, I'm coming. I love INSEAD. I've done not the full MBA, but I've done a senior management program 4 years ago, and I really enjoyed it, learned a lot. And the other reason is because I think we share a lot of common human values together, and these one fits completely in the theme that you've chosen for tonight. And with such a leader, as you've seen in the video, he might not describe himself as radical, but I can tell you he's not radical in his behavior every day, he's radical about his vision. And what you have is an obsession to translate that every day into your business model. As he said, CSR is not the Friday afternoon activity that you must have in a company or the kind of 10-page publication you need to have once a year. It's very much how you embed that in your business system. And the proof for us is to show that you can combine this and produce more growth and more wealth in a company. And that's what very often people oppose one to each other. If you do that, you cannot grow sustainably. Actually, this is today the recipe to grow sustainably. There is no other one. And anyway, we will be a bit more concrete maybe on some examples, but that's the reason why I'm here tonight.
Thank you, Bruno. I'll dive immediately in the concrete examples that you asked for and that the audience is looking for. Barbara, you talk about the sustainability crisis. We've heard Paul Polman talking about the sustainable living plan of Unilever. So sustainability clearly is at the heart of industry, of the corporate world these days. What do you do? And you can use Siemens, of course, as an example, to fix the crisis, basically, maybe using technology. So we have both topics covered at once.
That's very interesting. I joined Siemens in 2008, just when the crisis happened, the financial crisis. And secondly, to recognize Siemens had, and many of you must know that, a very, very substantial compliance issue to be resolved. So when I joined the company, it was internally very cold, because everybody has been just undergoing all these compliance rules, regulations, policing, audits, and so on. So it was a very frosty climate. And at the same time, the crisis happened. I was asked to do two things when I joined Siemens. One, to improve supply chain. It's 40 billion euro of volume, so it's very big. And the second was my title, Chief Sustainability Officer. So what you do with this? Well, I didn't introduce a corporate responsibility program, but I used the McKinsey abatement curve, which maybe some of you know. It's basically a very simple matrix. We haven't yet talked about tools a lot this evening, which on one axis just shows that by technology, what's the CO2 reduction potential, and on the other axis, basically the investments. And I asked McKinsey just to map the Siemens technologies at that time available. And what was a real eye-opener for me, but for everybody in Siemens, is that with the existing technologies at that time, we could solve 32% of the CO2 problem of the world. So then my sustainability task became very simple. I basically said, let's just sell more. And we did. And actually, 2008, it was 19 billion euro of revenues, and today it's 33 billion euro of revenues. It's now 41% of our business. Everybody's enthusiastic about it, because the second point of this business is that the reduction of CO2 we managed in the last year is the CO2 output of France. So what we have been selling until last year has the capability to reduce the CO2 at the level of the yearly CO2 output of France. So this makes our employees very proud, because they say it's a good business, but also we do something terribly good for the world. So that's really the way I have exploited, and together, of course, with the Siemens teams, sustainability as a great opportunity. And I also had very good news this morning. I have, of course, to share that with you. There is an Oscar in sustainability. It's called the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. It's a very difficult exercise. So once a year, 100 questions going from corporate governance to strategy. I was very, very happy at 7 o'clock this morning. My team made me an SMS saying that we are now the most sustainable industrial company in the world, before GE, before Philips, before Schneider, before Samsung, before Alstom, and all these very challenging companies, so great news. Thank you very much.
We talked a bit earlier about LC competition. You remember that? La saine compétition. I think that's a very good example in action of it. I'll give the floor to Bruno, because Bruno, also you have an experience of concrete actions behind what Paul talked about, and you called upon the Sustainability Living Plan. What is it about? What do you do? concretely?
I think it's interesting, Barbara, that you mentioned the Dow Jones Sustainability Index for your industry, because we have one also for FMCG, and I think Unilever has been leading the pack for the last 10 years. So it's a challenge, because of course everyone wants to challenge you and get the first rank. And the problem is, of course, you have to be proud there, but it's not to be first. Because what you have is to lead by example, engage the other actors of the industry, be them your competitors, to do the same, so that you have a massive impact on the improvement. But let's take probably one or two examples on what we do. First of all, I think you must always have a bit of humility when you think about making the world a better place. Because my feeling in a company as a leader is you never go fast enough and you never do big enough. But at least, you know, if you have that in mind, you have that as a driver to improve every day. And what you have is to relate that to your behavior and your business targets. And that's what Paul explained. Just two or three examples to highlight the point. When we engaged 3 years ago in the USLP, we defined that by 2020. And I think it's very important to be long-term, to have long-term objective, not only very, very short-term. And we say 100% of the raw mat we use to produce our food products are going to be sourced from a sustainable source. When we started, we had around 10%, and we are now running at around 40%. And I think without having this long-term vision. Now, of course, the remaining percentage will become harder and harder, but this is something that we do. So measure your own impact and improve very strong with measurement every year. But I think this is one element, what you can do. You measure your CO2 emission and you say we've managed to improve that at the level of consumption of France. But I think what is very important is you work in a connected world and you need to engage other players. And especially when you're an FMCG company, you produce CO2 by producing your own things, but you produce a lot of CO2 through the consumer and the way they consume your products. And we are engaged also in programs to improve the way our products are used in order to reduce the carbon footprint of our own products, not from our production, but from the usage of the product. And finally, I think what is extremely important is to build partnerships, because you are much stronger by building partnerships. And 3 years ago, when Paul announced in Davos the launch of the Unilever Foundation, okay, we've chosen 5 big NGOs in the world, and we're doing more than that, but 5 big, you know, UNICEF, World Food Organization, PSI, and Oxfam, for example, and how you work with them to improve further than just your own industry. And the good thing with external partnership, they keep challenging you every day. And I can tell you, you need to accept the external challenge to further improve and improve bigger and faster.
Thank you, Bruno. Paul, when I mentioned to Bruno, I think that you were sitting on the panel, a representative of the finance profession, said, what the hell is he going to talk about? We've seen a lot of in the past years, unfortunately, the bad sides of finance. But I do believe personally, and we've heard Sir Andrew Loud, we've heard Antonio Horta trying to restore confidence, trust. When we spoke on the phone, I think you told me that excessive optimism was actually dangerous for finance. So could you comment on that? Because that's interesting. And secondly, how do you view finance to be responsible and contribute to making the world a better place?
I think Andrew Large actually touched on what I wanted to say about excessive optimism in finance, but essentially, whether in terms of the crash, that you can trace back a lot of the problem to the libertarian philosophy of Alan Greenspan and of the right-wing establishment in the United States, and that created, and it was rooted in excessive optimism about human nature. Simultaneously, the problems in Europe today, which are masked by the financial crisis, are heavily related to the excessive role of the state, which is also linked to an excessive optimism about human nature on the left wing of politics. And for me, when you talk about optimism, you have to ground what you're thinking in actually, for me personally, a Judeo-Christian understanding of human nature, understanding our propensity for good and bad, and therefore being sober about how you think about optimism. I'd like to address your concerns. I too completely agree with you that the financial system has done an appalling disservice to the world economy. Hedge funds themselves are seen as part of that, and rightly so. There's been very bad behavior within some hedge funds. And Lord Turner in the UK, who's a man I greatly respect, actually said that a lot of the financial activity is socially useless. Now, I don't think a lot of it is, but I think some of it clearly is. And so in the running of our business, we try to focus everybody on what is the social purpose of what they do. And we're a hedge fund group. We run about $11 billion. Large part of that is for pension funds and savings institutions, including the church, including pension funds for firemen, including hospitals. And for me, looking after people's savings, including the Unilever pension fund, is a sacred trust because of mismanagement around the globe. We all actually have a major issue facing us in relation to savings. So that is if you like, the social purpose of the day job. But we also are fortunate enough to be in a business where you create a lot of wealth. We've been able to create a lot of wealth, and therefore you have a responsibility of stewardship of that wealth. And so what we have tried to do with a number of other hedge fund managers about a little over 10 years ago now is to create a charity where we apply the same principles and approach of hedge funds to the charitable world as we do to finance. In finance, we are a disruptive industry. We take on the banks, we do things differently, and we do things, in my opinion, better. Not all hedge funds, but I think in aggregate they do. In charity, what we've tried to do is to look at areas where we think there are real problems and real deep-rooted pessimism and try and create new models. And the thing that we've done various things in health with HIV, but the thing that's given me greatest fulfillment, actually, probably personally in my life, is the work we've done in education. And today in the UK, in the US, probably in this country too, around 1 in 5 children leave school at 16 unequipped, without the necessary literacy and numeracy to access the world of work. Those children are not the least bright children. They are typically the children who come from disadvantaged families. It is a massive, gross injustice. It's a total disgrace for us as a Western society to have allowed that to happen. And 10 years ago, there was a total complacency about it. Basically, it was sheep and goats. These are the guys. Find vocational training for them, or they can do rudimentary service jobs and so on. And we set out, and we weren't the only people to do this, but because there are people doing it in the States, to try and demonstrate with the right approach, children from disadvantaged backgrounds can do just as well in school as anybody else, and there is no excuse for any child leaving school unless they have severe learning disabilities. There's no reason why they cannot have the full level of literacy and numeracy, which allows them all of the access that we in this room have, and all of the opportunities that we in this room have. So that's what we've tried to do.
I think you must be very proud of that. And actually, I looked at on the web on what you're doing with ARK, Absolute Return for Kids, which you're talking about. You've raised, correct me if I'm wrong, 180 million pounds. You've helped 430,000 children in Europe, North America, India, and Africa. You currently run 18 schools in the UK, 2 schools in Uganda, and you support 635 poor children in India. You must be very proud of that. Why do you do this?
Yes, but thank you, but it's not the numbers, actually, it's important. It's trying to have a systemic effect. So it's not that we're doing 27 schools in the UK. It is that those schools, which were some of the worst performing schools in the country, we're now transforming them. And once you do that, you get the attention of the government, because they can no longer say that you can leave these schools to fail. Once you prove that children from disadvantaged backgrounds can do very well, then you change the whole system. So what we're really excited about is massive systemic change in our countries in relation to how people perceive education.
Thank you, Paul. Barbara, when we spoke on the phone, you told me that basically since graduating from INSEAD, you had a vision and you were on a mission to make the world a better place, because you basically invented almost sustainability, if I'm correct. Could you tell us, over this long career in different institutions, now in Siemens, what are you the most proud of? And I will ask the same question next to Bruno.
I'm not the most proud of the concrete results, which we were able to achieve in all the companies I've been working for. that's important, but that's not the thing I'm the most proud of. I'm actually the most proud of, and I think it's great you mentioned education, I'm the most proud of the teams I was able to build up. And to meet people I worked 20 years ago and see how they have grown. The teams in Siemens nowadays, they dress better, they present better, and they're more self-assured. And it's just great to see. I was this week again with some of my top 100 people in some of the areas. Some came up to me and they said, Barbara, I have learned so much from you, I will keep this. And I think that's the most important part, what you give to the people and what they can take from you, and they will continue to carry over. I think that's the. By the way, a great example, once in INSEAD, I came to teach the executive course, and then I talked about the joint ventures I established in Poland at the very beginning in 89 and 90. And I used these change agents, I called them hungry wolves for ABB, together, by the way, with Percy Barnevik and some other great leaders. And then one gentleman in the room came up to me and said, I was one of your hungry wolves. So one of these young talents from the Polish company. And he told me, from the hungry wolves, 5 are now CEOs of Polish companies. And one, unfortunately, has no job. But the one that has no job, he gets consulting assignment of the other ones. So these are the things that I'm proud of. I think the results come with it. I'm also proud of it, but I think the other aspect is more important.
Thank you, Bara. So breeding the young generation and the future leaders of this world. Bruno, one word of pride from you as well.
Just one little, not corrections, because I have nothing to correct, but maybe you betray a bit the words I used in the preparation.
I always over-exaggerate.
No,
you know me, Bruno.
We need the financial system in Unilever, obviously, to finance part of our growth. And I was just mentioning about, we've taken some positions. You know, Paul was the first to drop the quarterly earnings. And we were punished for that in the city, short term. Then the results were very good, and then we got it back. We took some positions on stopping too much short-term hedging on foods raw materials, because they create big problems in some of the regions of the world. So it's nothing about the finance system or the banking system. Is about some of the behaviors which are not done properly. And that's what I think as a company, we also, if it affects our business, we need to condemn. So anyway, don't take it personal. And I think what you do for education is brilliant. I'm not sure I will use the word pride. I'm not sure I have pride of anything, because as I said, you never do enough. You never do fast enough. And then you always have to give that. But something which interests me to come here, it was because it was INSEAD, and that's where you train the future talents. You know, I'm a member of the Dauphine University board, as you say. I graduated from there, and I'm involved with a lot of young generation. You know, when you talk about the youngs, to understand them beyond your kids, you be in contact, and this is about breeding young people in their job, in their responsibility, and trying beyond that. You are not going to interfere in their private life, but give a real sense of purpose of what they are going to do. And this is what, probably a bit like what Monseigneur said, drives me every day is there a little action that you can do better than the day before to try to fulfill their long-term purpose? And I think what we would need in institutions like INSEAD, Dauphine, or other ones, American ones, Asian ones, is when we talk about business leadership, we talk a lot about business, we talk a lot about business books, but from time to time we need to talk more about sustainability and feed our leadership style from texts like, you know, the Bible, and I'm not making any proselytism for the Bible, but you have a book for me which is much more important than any business book, which is called The Prophet, from Khalil Gibran, that probably some of you have read, or you have Saint-Exupéry, of course, Le Petit Prince, Aux Terres des Hommes. So in those kind of books, you learned actually a lot about leadership. And I think that's what we should probably use a bit more in this breeding the next generation of talents into the training of them. And that's something I'm trying to do every day.
Thank you, Bruno, for that. I think being after Jacques Seguela on the stage, being just before David Jones, the other king of advertising, if I would give you a 30-second slot to finish this panel and give an inspiring recommendation to the young generation, but also to us, the older generation in the room, what would it be?
It's all about enthusiasm, and there is a great saying from Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, nothing great has ever been done or achieved without enthusiasm. It's more than optimism. I think so be enthusiastic, take that forward. This will give enthusiasm to the other people, and you can do miracles.
Thank you.
Well, the three words I wanted to get across tonight were service, resilience, and disruption. So for me, it's about, as a business, you're in the business of serving your clients. As an individual, we all take every day knocks, setbacks, sometimes very big ones, and we need the resilience to face those and to move on. And that is how you end up building great things. The Bible is a great source of inspiration for me too. And then disruption, because I think I'm the only person who's going to say that tonight, so I want to say it again. But I believe that in business, the most exciting thing is to disrupt and challenge existing models. In charity, the most exciting thing is to disrupt and challenge existing models, because that's how you can be really effective as a radical optimist.
I think I will just say, don't give to receive, but give and you shall receive. And that's something that you can apply to your private life, but you can also apply to your business life. That's it, what I would say.
Thank you very much. Barbara, Bruno, Paul, thank you very, very much for your presence again. Thank you.